Got it.
All right, I'm James Hill, and I am joined by Dr. Holder. Talk a little bit about heat advisory and heat stroke as it relates to human beings. And obviously, this time of year in summer in Florida, it is hot, and people are trying to do whatever they can to stay safe and sound.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Heat kind of sneaks up on people, especially if you're not fully adjusted. And in the beginning, the season, it takes about 8 to 10 days to get used to it. So we tell people, get well hydrated, get rest, and find a cool place. It's like seek shade, rest, and stay hydrated. That's three simple words can really get you shade, rest, hydration. Now, why is it such a problem? Because when the temperature, just 2 days where it feels like 90, it doesn't have to be 90 on the thermometer, but it just feels like that because of the humidity. That's when our bodies have difficulty trying to maintain the hydration, and we won't stay as well. And we may start getting a little weak, a little dizzy. And these are some of the signs. Now, there's some people that are really vulnerable. And I think we don't have to be doctors to know when you're young and when you're very old, your bodies can't respond rapidly to changes. So those are the two groups that are really, really affected. And of course, people who work outdoors and athletes, because they're going to have difficulty with hydration.
Dr. Holder, annually, from an athletic standpoint, we see football players who have a tough time with heat on those fields. Can you just talk a little bit about, and you just alluded to it, the athletic field? There's baseball, there's soccer, the
Right.
world's most famous sport, and obviously football. And anytime you're outside jogging or running, even walking a dog, it can be a challenge.
Absolutely. And again, it makes perfect sense. Footballers, they wear helmets. Most of our heat and our bodies control our temperature by being able to get rid of the heat primarily through the head and also through the skin. Most football players are wearing helmets, they're wearing padding, and they tend to be bigger. And so if you're bigger with more body fat, it's like having a big blanket on you. So your body gets hotter. So yes, you'll see it with football players, and they're out in the middle of the day, often practicing when it's hot. And so they are very vulnerable, very vulnerable. Most athletes are because they're out, they're wearing too much clothes, and they can't get the body temperature out. Now, the football players, especially those that have a lot of hair, sometimes you'll see that the ones with the dreadlocks, that's another added layer. Helmet, big head of hair, covered up, and you just can't keep up with your fluids. Your body is sweating it out faster than you're drinking it in. So it's very, very dangerous.
Dr. Holder, when you look at just people who are maybe exposed to the elements and they're working outdoors, everyday people, not pro athletes, but just everyday human beings, and they live in Southwest Florida and places like Bradenton or Sarasota, or even down in Miami and on the eastern seaboard, anywhere in South Florida, anywhere from Tampa on down. When we see people outside in extreme heat, what can you tell people to help them stay safe and sound?
Just accept that the heat, especially when it feels like 90, that humidity in Florida makes you really susceptible. You're just not going to manage it as well as your brain thinks you are. So be prepared. Always have extra bottles. I tell for folks who have gardeners and landscapers, as a tip, have a bottle of extra water out there. Leave a bucket of water. You see your police officer, the UPS driver. We had a UPS driver who died recently because of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. They were in that vehicle outdoors hot. They didn't realize it. Be aware that your body may not give you the typical symptoms because of that humidity, and just have lots of fluids ready. Go in the cool area, go into a cool building. And if you can't get some of these, there's a thing you can just put a warm, wet towel, not a warm, but a cool towel around your neck. Keep your body cool and get in the shade. And we are out there. Give some bottles, give some coupons for everybody to get bottles of water. They're really nice gifts, and we can take care of each other.
Dr. Holder, in closing, the concept of heat exhaustion, heat stroke, human beings, having a challenging time when their bodies don't regulate that type of intensity from the sun and the heat and the humidity. In closing, could you put a final summary together, if you will, with regard to the heat and human beings in Florida and the summer? And it's hot out there.
Yeah, it's too hot. And even though it's always been hot for years, because of climate change, the days and our nights are just too hot. So our bodies are not as adjusted as they used to be. So we just got to accept that as a fact and be prepared. Lots of fluids to stay hydrated, seek shade, wear protective clothing, go back to our umbrellas, wear hats, and check in on each other. We can check in on our elderly, call our elderly. If you're going, your kids are going out to play sports, give that extra bottle of fluid, check in with their coach, tell their coaches, make sure they get that rest at night. Rest, shade, and cooling with fluids, ice is key, and checking on each other. If we're all taking care of our elderly, we're calling up auntie, we're calling up grandma, we're checking on our babies and our pets. Don't leave everybody outside. This is a reality. It's hot in the day, it's hot at night, and our bodies with the humidity can't do it on its own. It needs our help.
Dr. Holder, is there a certain amount of water that a human being should drink each day? And in particular, when we think about days like this, the so-called dog days of summer, if you will, should we try to drink a certain amount of water, glasses at a minimum?
There's lots of data that the 8 glasses of water isn't absolutely necessary. It's really liquids. So I don't like the juices and the sodas because that's just too many calories. So I tell folks, if you do drink a cup of tea in the morning or a cup of coffee, that counts in your 8. So think about it. Some people use the weight and say, if I'm 150 pounds, maybe I drink 15 not liters, but 15. Now I can't give you the exact amount because everybody is different. What I tell folks is look at their urine. And if their urine is a dark yellow, your body is not getting enough liquids, providing you're not drinking too many things that have yellow food color. But if you're just eating and drinking regularly, your pee can tell you a little bit about how much fluid you have. And it should be a nice light yellow. If it's too dark, drink some more fluids. If you're going to play and go outside in the heat, especially in the mornings till about 3 o'clock, take an extra bottle of water with you. Take an extra bottle of sugar-free fluids. You can drink your tea without sugar. You can drink your coffee without sugar. Avoid the alcohol because that does other things to you. But anything that gets liquids in you, at least 8 to 10 if you're out there running around. But don't wait for your body to tell you. Be prepared when you go out and check the color of your pee.
Dr. Holder, when we look at people who go for a walk, so to speak, or a jog, or they walk their dog, is it good for them to try to get that done in the morning between, say, 6 and 9 a.m., and then in the evenings from, I don't know, 7 to 9 p.m., when the temperatures have changed? And then we get into mosquitoes in the evening, but can you just talk a little bit about times a day? And I mean, you see somebody out there at noon without a hat on, and that can be challenging.
Yeah, definitely the cooler times is when we should be out there doing our exercise. Definitely before 9 o'clock in the morning. We used to say 10 to 2, but because the nights are not as cool as they used to be and the temperatures seem to be warmer all the time, we're now earlier than 9. So definitely 6 to 9 is a good time when it's cool. Check your temperature, and the humidity is key. So we have humidity in South Florida, so definitely get out early. In the evenings, put on your mosquito repellent, take a bottle of water when you go, and you don't have to buy bottles of water. Just fill up a little thermos and take it with you and go out in the evenings and get your exercise. Definitely do not put those big plastic suits on, think you're going to lose weight by exercising in the heat in those big old suits. All you're losing is water, and you're not losing fat, and you're increasing your chances of getting heat exhaustion and heat stroke by exercising in those big plastic layers. Never do that.